Hi, Steve.
Hi, Pranay.
Hi, everyone. This is the first episode of the New Resilience podcast, where we bring industry leaders like you, talk about your lessons, your journeys, your stories, and spread the knowledge far and wide. So that's why we're here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Awesome. So let's get started. We'll start with maybe with a story. How did you get into this space? What got you into it?
It's a long story.
We have time.
I was actually quite young. I was 18 at the time,
Okay.
and I was between college years. And my athletic director from high school asked me if I would come and help out a little bit with some young men that needed a lot of activity in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, why not? And I was a little nervous because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, even though that was in the same town I lived in. I really didn't understand what Mary Meadow Farm at the time
Right.
was. So I went for an interview, and when I got there,
What was the job like?
it was a 3 to 11 overnight.
Okay.
Actually, it was just coverage, staff coverage, and an overnight shift, which
And so
I
you
really
had to
didn't
take care
understand
of
what
the
that
facility.
meant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I don't know.
Coverage, right?
Yeah.
Supervision,
Okay.
just to be in the house. As a licensing for Vermont that says somebody has to be in the house at all times. And I didn't understand what it was,
Yeah.
but I thought, why not? I needed
Sure.
to make money. And I trusted Bob, my athletic director. So I went there, and when I arrived, this gentleman
Yeah.
ran towards me. And I sort of stopped thinking, what is this, right? And he stuck his hand out and he says, my name is so-and-so. And I said, my
Right.
name's Steve. And he said, you want to talk? I said, sure.
That's what I'm here.
And we talked for like I hadn't had the job yet, though. I was
Yeah.
interviewing for the
Yeah.
job. And I was just talking with this gentleman for a half an hour. And he obviously had some outside stimulation happening and
Mm-hmm.
would talk to me, and then would talk to a voice, and would talk to me and talk to a voice. And
Hmm.
I found it fascinating. So
Mm-hmm.
when Bob came out and said, where you been? I've been waiting for you. I said, I've been talking to this gentleman.
Yeah.
And I walked in and he said, so I said, I'll do it. Whatever it is, I'll do it. I think this is so interesting.
Okay.
And I actually started that night was my first night.
So you went in for the interview and then you just started?
I just started. Yeah.
Wow.
Back then there wasn't quite as many hoops to go through as
Yeah.
it is today, because that was 1988, I think,
Right.
87,
Right.
88. So I started. I worked there for 3 or 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Back to school, and then came back again after that. Did another stint, and my parents owned a bagel bakery at the time, and they needed my help, so I left there and went, and I became the bagel man for a little
Wow.
while. Yeah, that was depressing.
Were they good?
They
The
were
bagels?
they were very good bagels,
Okay.
but it was not a fun job at 1 in the morning. So
Yeah.
I did not aspire to be a bagel maker. So I ended up leaving from there and going into community mental health in New Hampshire for a few years. Then I went back to Mary Meadow Farm in 1993.
Did you go into community mental health because of your experience at Mary Mental Farm?
Absolutely. I just wanted to continue working with folks that needed support.
Mm-hmm.
I loved working with individuals that were suffering from symptoms of schizophrenia.
Mm.
Being able to support them and being able to accept them and to be with them in their own space was enjoyable to me.
Did that come from something that was very personal in your life, or?
Not at all. I had no
Interesting.
experience whatsoever with that, except for some family members that were unique,
Right.
but not necessarily diagnosably unique.
Right. Right. Was it a matter of awareness to at that point that people were not aware of, like?
I wasn't,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't aware of what this industry had to hold.
Right.
I just thought this is more fun than
Hmm.
bagel making.
Yeah.
So
Probably is.
that kind of cemented that idea that
Yeah.
this is a lot better. But other than that, I really decided at that point, this is what I want to do. I don't
Yeah.
want to do anything else.
Okay. So went back from bagel making to community mental health, and then
And then I went back to Mary Meadow Farm, which later became Averte.
okay.
And the Williams family was the founders and owners of Mary Meadow Farm, and they took me in as pretty much family.
Okay.
Yeah, they treated me like family. Wonderful, wonderful people. With Betty Williams was our founder, and just an amazing woman, a pioneer in the industry,
Right.
caring, loving, and accepting of everybody. And she and Bob, my supervisor Bobby, really taught me everything. I'm indebted to them forever for that. And
Right.
then eventually, brought me into the fold, and I was an owner.
Right.
Right now, it's my 31st year there.
It's quite a journey
Mm.
coming from overnight shift to being the owner.
Overnight shift, plunging toilets, everything. Yeah.
Nice, nice. So you've been through all of that. What was the sort of like vision like when you started out as the owner? So you became the owner when? Was it like
Well,
a few years?
I became the CEO in '99.
Okay.
So at that time, Bobby decided to do something else. In the go back and get his degree as a therapist and do something different. So I took over in 1999, and I was the CEO for 15 years, 16 years until I became an owner.
Ah, okay. And this is all, as we understand, all of this is in Bradford, Vermont, where
Bradford,
you,
Vermont, and Hanover, New Hampshire. We also
right.
had a program in Hanover, New Hampshire.
So was it fun, sort of like working in the same place that you kind of like grew up with? You went out for a bit and then came back.
It was, and it was also my hometown,
Right,
right? So I grew up there. So it was kind of nice being back in my hometown instead of in a place that I didn't feel was
right.
mine.
Do you think that helped in sort of like the journey in some sense?
I think it did because it allowed me to put down some roots.
Hmm.
I also, when I went back to Merry Meadow Farm in 1993, I also reconnected with my wife, who was my high school
Right,
sweetheart.
right,
And we had gone to different colleges and had been separated.
right,
So we both kind of went back to that town at the same time,
right.
reconnected, and then have been married for
Yeah.
almost 30 years.
And as we understand, she also works.
She does. She's a part of our clinical team.
That is so awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Cool. So if you were to like sort of think back, and the reason why, one of the reasons we're doing this podcast is also like sort of think about what you've learned over the years. So going back to the journey, so you're the CEO now. What's going on in your head? Like you were what, like 29, 30 at the time?
Yeah.
That's a young age to be a CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, it came to a little bit of a surprise to me at the time.
Right.
But back then, we were primarily long term mental health. So our
This is like
admissions,
6 months. Like how much?
no, we were talking 25 years. People
Oh,
would come to
okay.
us and stay the remainder of their lives with us at
Okay.
times. And they still do to this degree, but to a very small degree.
Hmm.
But we were long term, care.
Right.
So at the time, admissions and discharges were a handful a year.
Right.
So
You only have so many
marketing,
beds. Yeah.
right? So marketing and that
And was
that
this local? Like people who were coming in?
no, very rarely was it local. It
Huh.
was mostly from New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut,
How did they know about
California.
the place?
Word of mouth for the
Okay.
most part, because
So
it
really
was a
good
small
care.
industry at the time.
Yeah.
We give good care. We come highly. We're highly respected. So it was a lot of word of mouth. A lot of families
Yeah.
would find out, and they'd go to groups, and
Yeah.
they would talk about their loved ones,
Yeah.
and they would say, "Wow, that sounds like a great place," and they'd call
Nice.
us. So it was a lot of word of mouth, and you need back then, you
Right.
give good care, you get good recommendations.
Right. 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 So then, but that word of mouth followed, but you realized that were you moving from long term to relatively
The whole industry was
okay.
right. It was going from now that we have interventions come quicker, medications were better.
Right.
People didn't need to live. The
Right.
whole goal was to get people out into the community if you could.
Right.
And those kind of interventions helped get people back out into the community. So our stays got shorter and shorter, which means you need more
More
clients.
churn, like more
Right.
people
We need
to
more
come in.
people
Yeah.
to be interested in coming to your
Right.
program. And at that point, we were not terribly prepared for that.
Hmm.
So we didn't have systems in place that would allow us to market better,
Okay.
to expand past recommendations from family members
Hmm.
or doctors that you worked with for a long time. So we went to using spreadsheets.
Right.
I think Microsoft Database was something way back then.
Was that new at that time?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You
that's
probably
state of the art. Probably.
I would say there back then. You probably
Yeah.
didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
You might be a little younger than I am, and it really was close to useless. Right?
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
it wasn't a great way of making sure that you had a pipeline of people to
Right.
help when
Right.
you needed
Right.
them, and that lasted a long time. I mean, we'd used either nothing or something really, really sort of trivial for a
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
long time. And right up until probably, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago, we
Mm.
did that.
Hmm.
And
And was it
then
just you who was doing?
it was pretty much just me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're traveling, you're doing the conferences.
Traveling, conferences, going out, interviewing people in hospitals,
Yeah. And keeping it all in your head.
jails. Mostly keeping it in my head,
Yeah.
which isn't a great place to keep it, obviously. But there wasn't a really great alternative
Right.
to doing
Right.
that. So you just kind of relied on it and you hope that it worked and you hope
Right.
that it You hope that you were still there to be able to share this
Okay.
information with people that needed it.
Right.
Um, until we started using HubSpot.
Mm.
That was our first jump into the CRM world.
Yeah.
It was clunky. We were not able to adapt it to what we wanted. It was for sales, and we didn't
Right.
feel like we were salespeople. We felt we were connectors.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
wanted to connect with people, help people,
Mm-hmm.
but all the verbiage was deals and
Right.
sales and
Yeah.
deals. It was very
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and it wasn't HIPAA compliant. We found out,
Yeah.
right? So you couldn't really use it to the degree we wanted to use it,
Yeah.
and we really didn't find a replacement
Right.
until New Resilience,
Right.
to where we could actually put the information we wanted in there,
Yeah.
track it the right way, help us make good decisions on
Mm-hmm.
where we should be marketing, where we
Yeah.
should be putting our money to market,
Right.
and how do we get more people interested in our program.
Right. How are you thinking about these things, even with spreadsheets, right? Like you had to think about like what's working, what's not working. Where do I, again, you had, I'm sure, had limited funds like every other business, small business does. So how do you think about
It was
these things?
probably less about limited funds as limited time,
Right.
right? Because
Hmm.
when you're a owner or a director of a small program, you put many hats on
Right.
and you do a lot of different tasks. So to say you can dedicate time to looking at spreadsheets,
Yeah.
analyzing spreadsheets,
Yeah.
trying to figure out how that's going to help you and
Right.
then implement it
Yeah.
was nearly impossible. It was
Right.
too much time. So you'd start to do it, then you get a phone call.
Right.
You start to do it, then a staff person comes in and
Yeah.
talks to you. It's just not
See,
enough
start,
time,
stop, start, stop.
not
Yeah.
enough time
Yeah.
in the world. So really, the answer to that is we didn't use it.
Okay.
It wasn't effective. I felt like I was doing something,
Right.
but it wasn't effective.
Okay. Okay. And was that at the point that you started realizing, oh, you need a better system that's, um,
Right. And then, so what I did was I signed up with another CRM
yeah.
company that, do we
Yeah.
do we talk about what it's called?
Uh, yeah, we can.
Okay. It was called Insightly.
Yeah.
They were HIPAA compliant at every
Mm.
level, and that's the only one I could find that was HIPAA
Yeah.
compliant at every level. But the onboarding for Insightly nearly killed me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was so hard, and it was again time.
Yeah.
Right. Even though our business grew a little bit and I had less hats to wear, there's still a finite amount of time to spend on anything. And it just was, I just avoided it like the
Yeah.
plague. Like every time the team would call me to say, we need to get these spreadsheets done and these,
Yeah.
I don't know what the words, the fields,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
asked me, what fields do you want? And I honestly didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
So I
Right.
just avoided it. I just didn't
Yeah.
do it. So that money was wasted,
Right.
until Dr. Grote called me
Yeah.
and said, hey, I'm working with these guys, you
Yeah.
and AB,
Yeah.
and I'd really like you to take a look at this and help me out. And I said, if it
Yeah.
wasn't Dr. Grote, I probably would have said, no, thank you. I don't have the time. But it was Dr. Grote. So I said, sure, I'll do that. And I was pleasantly surprised that it was not only exciting, but
Right.
it was easy to use. You guys have been a delight to work with. And it's really changed how we do everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have Kristen, a full-time business development person that loves it. We have Noah Zind, who is our admissions person who loves using it.
Yeah.
And that really does give us direction. We
Yeah.
finally have direction on where we should be spending our time, where our referrals are
Right.
coming from, um, where are our soft points, where are our good points.
Right.
So it's really, it's if I had this
Yeah.
10 years ago,
Yeah.
my goodness, I would have saved so much time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Better late than never.
Yes, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I mean, everything happens the way it's
Right.
supposed
Right.
to happen.
Right. I do want to go deeper on that and like, like the what's working, the admissions and the marketing, because we keep hearing about that. When you have systems like these, like, is there almost a blueprint that like you can talk about, especially because some of the people that we expect to be listening to the podcast are looking at this is people who are potentially starting out, like starting their new businesses, thinking about growth and stuff. So what's almost a blueprint that you can provide to people to like, here's how you think about growth, here's how you think about referral sources, business development, like again.
So it's all for us. It's all about connecting with people,
Mhm.
right? If you can connect with people and you can spend your time connecting with people, you're going to make those relationships that are going to benefit your business. If you're going to spend all of your time inputting data and sitting in an office
Mhm.
and catching up on your paperwork, it's going to be really, really hard to make the lasting connections that are going to be fruitful. So what New Resilience does is allows us to spend 90% of our time with people
Hmm.
The rest of the time, the app does a lot of the work for you. The AI does a lot of work for us, therefore allowing us to say we are people.
Right.
And we spend the majority of our time doing that rather than sitting in an office in front of a computer. It's invaluable.
Right.
I mean, it's a wonderful change for us because we really feel like we're actually doing the work we're supposed to be doing
Right.
rather than
Yeah.
office people.
Right. Right. When we think about the industry, like you talked about when you were taking over as CEO, you saw some changes in the industry where it was going from like really long term to like shorter term. Do you see any of such changes that are happening in this industry, and like how should people think about the space overall?
I think it continues to get shorter and shorter and shorter,
Hmm.
which is why you're seeing some of the programs out there going to insurance model
Right.
so that they're having shorter stays, getting insurance reimbursement.
Hmm.
We have resisted that because we don't want insurance companies driving how we do treatment
Right.
and how we perform and the time that somebody can be with us in treatment.
Right.
So what we just see that continuing, and it's a sad change for us.
Hmm.
But what we try to do is just make sure that we are continually offering the best services out there that we can to people and hope they can stay as long as they need to make
Yeah.
the changes that they want in life.
Yeah. It's probably also where like you have a volume of people coming in who have to use insurance, so then there's probably places that you can refer these people out to.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful things about the future of New Resilience, as I think about it,
Right.
is that there's going to be a New Resilience community that we can share those kinds of referrals with.
Right.
So if we cannot, if somebody needs to use their insurance,
Right.
we will refer them to somebody that has insurance
Yeah.
and wish them the best. And that's what you can do inside the New Resilience community a lot easier. There's other communities like ARDA that help with that too. So we have a lot of friends in the industry that do things slightly different than we do,
Right.
and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And we respect that, so we use that to the best and
Got it.
just to share all of the resources out there.
Do you want to talk to us a bit about ARTA?
About ARDA,
Yeah.
ARDA is the American Residential Treatment Association. It's been in existence for over 40 years.
Okay.
I've been a member of it for almost 30 years now. And it's a wonderful community of 30 to 32 programs that share best practices. We meet twice a year in Massachusetts and talk. We have an educational component to it, and we do a lot of leadership support.
Hmm.
So I hold a ARDA chat every Tuesday for people that need it. That started during COVID when we were
Yeah.
all suffering through
Yeah.
through the COVID mess, and we were all supporting each other, and it's just continued throughout. It's a
Okay.
wonderful organization.
Is there like places that people can go to and see what being an ARTA member looks like?
We have a website, ardausa.org.
Okay.
You can check that out. You can reach out to us through that.
Right. We'll leave your email in the podcast too, so that people can reach out.
Excellent. Yes.
All right. One thing that comes to mind for me is again going back to the audience of people who are potentially like starting out places. You've been through the whole journey. So you started out as like an overnight person, like growing the center and stuff. If someone's starting out, are there things that you wish you had known, and so you want to impart some wisdom to people? What would that be?
I wish that everybody could get paid what they deserve. I wish insurance reimbursement was better.
Yeah.
I wish that our government would pay for health care,
Mm-hmm.
for mental health care. I think social workers, direct care employees are just like our firemen and our police officers and our teachers. They're undervalued and underpaid.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that was different, and I wish people could experience that. But starting out a new program, I think I would say, just be ready to work. It's a lot of work.
Do you want to talk about the working hours that you had when you were?
Well, as I said, in the industry, you don't get paid a lot, so sometimes you have to have extra jobs. So I did, work as a bagel baker at the same time as working full time. So it was a lot of hours, but it was all worth it. It creates great work ethic.
Right.
I don't know that I would recommend it, but you do what you have to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Any final parting thoughts? Wisdom?
I appreciate the time with you guys. I love working with you guys. I thank Michael Grote for reaching out because otherwise we would be in the same situation we were in before with a product that we did not enjoy and a
Yeah.
product that was not meeting our needs.
Yeah.
I think all of those CRMs out there for sales are wonderful for sales.
Right.
I don't think it's wonderful for behavioral health and for connectability.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited about this. I'm a user of the product in many ways and a big promoter.
Awesome. Thank you for spending the time with us, Steve.
Thank you.
Right.
All right.